The pen trembled in his hand as the cashier's voice filled the silent bank lobby. Clause 7 grants full ownership of the $500 million inheritance to Mrs. Marissa Parker. Every head turned. The blind man sitting across the table lifted his face toward the sound, his dark glasses catching the fluorescent light. His jaw tightened, but his voice stayed calm. Could you read that again? Marissa's manicured fingers pressed harder into his arm. It's fine, Nathan. Just sign it. Like we discussed. Her smile was sugar. Her pulse wasn't. The cashier glanced between them uneasy. She'd seen love before, but not like this. Not with eyes that never saw, and a wife who couldn't stop watching the clock. Nathan's hand hovered above the signature line. He couldn't see her shifting eyes. He couldn't see the text message lighting her phone under the counter. Once he signs, it's done. D. He exhaled slowly. You said this was just paperwork, Marissa. It is, she whispered too quickly. But kindness has its own eyes, and sometimes it sees more than sight ever could. Why was the cashier suddenly afraid to hand over the pen? What secret had Marissa buried inside the fine print? And when the truth reached the man who couldn't see, what would he make them see instead? The morning sun over Dallas cut across the polished hood of the black SUV as Marissa Parker stepped out in a tailored white dress. Her husband Nathan followed slowly, guided by the gentle hand of their driver. The silver tip of his walking cane tapped the pavement with the measured rhythm of a man who'd long learned to make darkness his companion. And inside the bank, everything smelled like air-freshened marble and money. Marissa's voice was honey smooth when she spoke to the manager. We just need to finalize the inheritance documents. My husband will sign once they're read to him. The manager smiled politely and gestured to a teller named Mrs. Elaine Cooper, a woman in her early 50s with soft eyes and the kind of patience that belonged to someone who still believed in good people. Of course, Elaine said, motioning them toward a private desk. Mr. Parker, would you like me to read the forms aloud before you sign? Yes, please, Nathan replied, calm and gracious. I never sign what I can't hear first. Marissa shifted beside him, her perfume sharp, her tone bright. We don't have all day, Elaine. He just needs to confirm and sign. The trust lawyer's waiting. Elaine ignored the tone. She began reading. Her voice echoed softly in the polished room, line by line through clauses of the Parker family trust. The will from Nathan's late father worth over $500 million. Then something made her pause. Paragraph 7. This document grants full administrative control and beneficiary power to Marissa Parker upon Nathan Parker's signature. Elaine frowned slightly and read it again. Nathan's head tilted. Wait, he said quietly. Full control? Marissa's grip on his arm tightened. It's standard language, babe. The attorney explained this. Remember? Elaine hesitated. It's, unusual, sir. Typically, both signatures retain shared authority. Marissa cut her off with a smile so sharp it could slice glass. It's what the lawyers advised. He trusts me. Right. Honey? Nathan's lips pressed together. The air changed. Every sound in the lobby seemed to stretch. Elaine's voice softened. Mr. Parker, you don't have to rush this. But Nathan reached for the pen, fingers trembling slightly. Read the rest, he said. Elaine did. Every clause, every line. Her voice became the drumbeat of something shifting. Inheritance, authority, beneficiary power, all sliding to Marissa. When she finished, the silence felt heavier than money. Nathan smiled faintly. Marissa, when did Dad's trust become our trust? Marissa's throat moved once before she found her charm again. You know how your dad wanted me involved. He trusted me to take care of you. It's just legal structure. He nodded slowly. Legal structure, he repeated, and he signed. Elaine took the papers with quiet reluctance, watching his hand move across the page guided by trust instead of sight. She stamped the seal, but her gaze never left the couple. Something in the moment felt off, like a prayer said backwards. Outside, the Texas heat met them like a wall. Marissa's phone buzzed. She smiled at the message flashing on screen before tucking it away too quickly. Nathan caught the faint hum of her excitement, but said nothing. When they reached the SUV, he paused by the door. You seem lighter, he murmured. She kissed his cheek. Maybe I am. He smiled faintly, his hand tightening on the cane. Then I hope it's not because of what I just signed. Her eyes flickered, the charm slipping for half a heartbeat. Don't be paranoid, Nathan. But as the car door shut and the city rolled past the tinted glass, her phone vibrated again. This time, the message preview stayed long enough for the camera of fate to catch it. Can't wait till it's all ours. D. Marissa's thumb hovered above the delete button, her pulse jumping once, twice. Then she hit erase. Beside her, Nathan turned his head slightly toward her perfume and smiled to himself. Quiet, unreadable, dangerous. And that's where everything began to change. The night after the bank signing, the house on Preston Hollow was unusually quiet. The fountain in the courtyard whispered through the open windows, and the sound of Marissa's heels clicking across the marble floor echoed like distant applause. Nathan sat on the leather couch in his study, the fire crackling low, his cane resting beside him. He'd replayed the moment at the bank more times than he wanted to admit. The sound of that clause, the tremor in the teller's voice, the way Marissa's hand had pressed down on his arm, none of it left him. She came in wearing silk pajamas, wine in one hand and her phone in the other. Still awake? I couldn't sleep. She smiled faintly. You worry too much. Everything's settled now. You don't have to think about banks and papers and all that anymore. He turned his head slightly toward her. You're right, I don't. His voice was calm, almost tender, but the stillness behind it made her pause. She set her glass down and leaned against the doorway. Nathan, you trust me, don't you? He nodded, his fingers tapping once on the armrest. With everything that matters. She smiled, kissed his forehead, and left. But she didn't go to bed. He heard her soft footsteps trail down the hall, the faint sound of her whispering on the phone. The words were too low to catch, but the laughter wasn't. It wasn't a wife's laugh. It was the kind of laugh that belonged to a woman without a husband in the next room. Nathan reached for the small device on the table beside him, a digital recorder. He'd used it for work notes before his blindness worsened. Tonight he turned it on and placed it against the wall, angling the mic toward the hallway. The next morning, Marissa was cheerful, humming through the kitchen as if the night had never existed. Your assistant dropped off those reports, she said, setting a stack of envelopes beside him. Thanks. She kissed his cheek again before heading out, her perfume hanging behind like a secret. He waited until the sound of her SUV disappeared down the driveway, then pressed play on the recorder. Static, footsteps, then her voice. He signed it, baby. It's done. Yes, I told you. We'll move the rest in a few days. He'll never know. I promise. A man's voice replied, muffled but clear enough. Good girl. Soon as the transfer clears, we disappear for a while. You and me. Nathan stopped the playback. His hand didn't shake. It stilled completely. He sat in the silence, listening to the clock tick like a pulse. He called his driver, Sam, a man who'd been with him since before his blindness. Sam, I'll need you to take me somewhere this afternoon. Don't tell Mrs. Parker. Yes, sir. By noon, Nathan stood in front of the frosted glass door of a law firm in downtown Dallas. Inside, a woman's voice greeted him with the kind of quiet authority that could slice through lies. Mr. Parker, I'm attorney Claire Donovan. You said it was urgent? It is. He told her everything. The inheritance, the clause, the recording. Claire listened without interrupting once. When he was done, she said softly, You may have signed the papers, but if coercion or fraud is involved, we can challenge it. But first, we need evidence that ties her to that man. I'll get it, Nathan said. She smiled faintly. Then I'll handle the rest. That evening, Marissa returned home radiant, full of laughter, spinning a story about a bored luncheon. Nathan sat at the piano in the living room, playing softly, the melody gentle, almost sorrowful. You sound like you're playing for a funeral, she teased, walking behind him. He smiled. Maybe I am. She laughed, not knowing he meant hers, the one she'd already planned without realizing who'd write the ending. As the music faded, his phone buzzed on the table beside him. A message from Claire. Private investigator recommended. Name Thomas Reed, ex-Dallas PD. Discreet. Nathan's fingers brushed over the screen, his smile faint but cold. Good, he whispered. Let's see who my wife's really married to. And in the reflection of the grand piano's lid, Marissa's phone lit up behind him. She didn't see his face tilt slightly toward the sound of her incoming message. Dinner tomorrow, same place. D. He didn't move. He just smiled. Tomorrow would be the first move. Rain pressed softly against the windshield as Nathan sat in the back seat of his car, listening to the hum of downtown Dallas around him. The streets were slick, neon lights bending in the puddles like fractured glass. Sam parked quietly by a small cafe that didn't match the power and polish of the Parkers' world. A man stepped out from the shadows of the awning. Tall, built like someone who used to wear a badge. Thomas Reed, mid-40s, coat collar up, eyes that never stopped scanning. He opened the door, his handshake firm. Mr. Parker, Claire filled me in. You said this has to stay between us. It does, Nathan said, voice calm but lined with steel. My wife's name can't be connected to anything until I say so. Thomas nodded. Understood. You want her followed? I want her life exposed. Every message, every face, every lie. Thomas studied him for a second. You sure you want to see all of it? I don't need to see, Nathan said quietly. I just need to know. Thomas gave a thin smile. Fair enough. He took a folder from his coat. I'll start with her calls and movements. I've got a tech who can clone her phone's backup remotely. It'll take a few days. Make it 2, Nathan said. Thomas hesitated. Then you should know, whoever this D is, he's being careful. Burner numbers, encrypted messages, that's not some random fling. That's someone smart. Then he's someone close, Nathan replied. The rain thickened. Across the street, Marissa's name glowed faintly from a billboard. An ad campaign she'd done for a luxury housing development. The face of loyalty, the tagline read. 3 days later, Thomas returned to Nathan's study at the Parker estate. He placed an envelope on the desk. You were right, he said. Inside were printed photos. Marissa in a wine-red dress, sitting in the corner booth of a dim restaurant. Her hand rested on another man's wrist. Nathan's fingers brushed the photo edges, his jaw tight. Thomas continued. That's Derek Lawson, businessman. Used to be your partner before your accident. Nathan froze. Derek. Yeah, looks like he never left your life. He's been meeting her for weeks. Hotels, lunches, sometimes at your company's downtown property. Nathan exhaled slowly. At my property, Thomas nodded. And he's using one of your shell companies to funnel funds to her account. 50,000 here, 75 there. They've been planning to drain the trust once the transfer's clear. The words didn't sting. They solidified, like concrete setting under his ribs. Nathan leaned back, fingers tightening on the cane by his side. I want you to dig deeper. I want timestamps, audio, video, everything admissible in court. If they meet again, record it. Thomas studied him carefully. You planning to confront her? Not yet. Let her feel safe. Let her think I'm blind to everything. Marissa came home late that night, humming softly, the scent of Derek's cologne faintly mixed with her own. She walked into the kitchen and found Nathan sitting there, a glass of water untouched in front of him. You didn't sleep? She asked. I was waiting for you. Her hand froze midair. For me? Why? Just wanted to hear your voice, he said, smiling faintly. It helps me sleep. Her eyes flickered, guilt warring with relief. You're sweet, Nathan. I try, he said. Where were you tonight? Dinner with the board. You know how these things go. He nodded, his head tilting slightly, not toward her words, but the hesitation in them. Did you enjoy it? She smiled. You know I always do. He stood and walked toward her slowly, the cane tapping softly. He leaned close, his face inches from hers. Good, because soon I'll make sure everyone hears about your dinner plans. She frowned, unsure if it was a joke, but his expression gave her nothing. He turned away, heading upstairs. The light caught the reflection of his face in the window. Calm, unreadable. The quiet of a storm forming far beyond her understanding. The next morning, Thomas sent a text. Got video. She's meeting him again at the Hilton. Room 602. You'll want to hear what she says. Nathan's fingers hovered over the screen. Then he called Claire. I have what we need, he said. Then it's time, Claire replied. We start building the case. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the glass panes like a warning. Upstairs, Marissa's laughter echoed faintly through the house. Sharp, careless, golden. Nathan turned his face toward the sound and whispered, "Laugh now," because soon she'd be laughing under oath. The phone vibrated once on Nathan's nightstand. No ringtone, no alert, just a single buzz that broke the silence. He reached for it carefully, already knowing who it was. Thomas Reed. "Video ready. You need to hear this yourself." Nathan rose from bed, following the soft rhythm of his cane through the dark hall. Downstairs, the house slept. The faint smell of Marissa's perfume lingered in the air, floral, expensive, and laced with deceit. He reached his study, shut the door, and pressed play. The audio began with laughter, hers, familiar, carefree, dangerous. Then a man's voice, smooth and confident. "You should have seen his face at the bank." "He really signed it?" Marissa's laughter deepened. "He did. The cashier read everything, and he still signed. Blind trust at its finest." Nathan's jaw tightened. The room seemed to shrink around the sound of their voices. Derek spoke again. "Good. Once the rest clears, we'll move the funds offshore. He'll never trace it. And when it's done, you'll file for divorce, right?" "Of course," Marissa replied. "He's been dragging me down for years. Everyone thinks I'm a saint for staying with a blind man. Once this is done, I'll finally live like I deserve." Derek chuckled. "And what about the kids? He'll ask for custody." That's when her voice changed, soft, almost mocking. "He can't claim what isn't his." The silence that followed hit like a blow. Derek paused. "You mean?" Marissa laughed again. "Ava is his, but Michael? You know the truth, baby. He looks more like you every day." The sound of glasses clinking punctuated the confession. Then Derek's voice dropped lower. "You're cold, Marissa." "I'm realistic," she said. "You think he'd keep me around if he knew?" "He's too proud for pity. That's why we do this smart. Once the trust moves, you and I disappear for a while. Then when the divorce settles, I get the mansion, you get your cut, and Nathan can play the blind victim on talk shows." The video ended with the rustle of sheets and the sound of her whispering something Nathan didn't need repeated. He sat there in the dark long after the playback stopped. His fingers traced the desk's edge, steady and deliberate. Then, without hesitation, he sent the clip to Claire. 10 minutes later, her voice came through the line, sharp, controlled. "That's more than adultery, Nathan. That's criminal conspiracy. You're sitting on gold." "Not gold," he said softly. "Poison." Claire exhaled. "Do you want to go public now?" "Not yet. Let them finish the act. The bigger the stage, the harder the fall." The next day, Nathan played the perfect husband. He greeted Marissa at breakfast, complimented her perfume, even laughed at her small talk. She noticed the new stillness in him, but mistook it for peace. Later that week, Thomas followed her again, this time to a clinic in Plano. She told Derek it was a spa day. It wasn't. It was a prenatal DNA lab. She walked out with a sealed envelope. That night, Nathan sat in the courtyard pretending to listen to the fountain while Marissa called Derek from the patio. "I told you, Derek, I'm handling it. The test confirmed it. He's yours." That's leverage. Nathan tilted his face slightly toward the sound of her voice, his fingers tightening on the cane until his knuckles whitened. When she hung up, he stood from the bench. "Everything okay?" She startled slightly. "Oh, you scared me. Yeah, everything's fine." He smiled faintly. "You've been smiling a lot lately. I like it." "Really?" she asked, suspicion flickering. "Sure. Happiness looks good on you. Just remember, it doesn't last forever." She laughed awkwardly and walked back inside. Nathan stayed behind, listening to her heels fade across the marble floor, and whispered to himself, "Soon it'll be your turn to listen." The following morning, Thomas dropped off a second envelope, photos, timestamps, and the clinic receipt. Nathan ran his fingers over the embossed letterhead, feeling the raised print like Braille for betrayal. He called Claire. "I'm done collecting," he said. "Then we move to phase 2, she replied. "Freeze the assets, quietly. I'll need your signature on the motion." Nathan smiled, irony heavy in his tone. Signatures have a way of changing everything, don't they? That night, Marissa slept peacefully, dreaming of wealth she'd never touch. Nathan lay beside her, awake, listening to her breathe. Every sound painted her guilt clearer than sight ever could. His phone buzzed again. Thomas's final message. Package delivered to your lawyer. They won't see it coming. Nathan turned the screen face down, the glow fading into darkness. He whispered one last line to the ceiling, his voice calm and lethal. You took my trust. Now I'll take your world. And in the darkness, the clock struck midnight. The exact hour her accounts began freezing. Morning sunlight spilled through the vast windows of the Parker mansion, catching on every glass surface like tiny spotlights, exposing a stage. Marissa stood by the mirror in her walk-in closet, scrolling through her banking app while zipping up a pearl-colored dress. She had a meeting with Derek and a private realtor. Plans to purchase a hidden penthouse in Austin once the transfer cleared. Her nails froze mid-tap. Error, transaction declined. She frowned, refreshed the screen. Same message, another swipe, another denial. Her balance, once reading $2.4 million, now showed account restricted. Contact bank. Her heartbeat kicked against her ribs. No, 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 she whispered. She tried the savings account, then the trust. Both locked. A banner flashed. Injunction notice. Parker Family Trust under legal review. What the hell is this? Nathan's voice came from behind her, calm as ever. Something wrong? She flinched, spinning around. Nathan, you scared me. Sorry. His head tilted toward her, expression unreadable behind his dark glasses. You sounded upset. It's nothing. Bank's probably having a system issue. She forced a laugh. You know how these apps are. He smiled slightly. Yes, technology can be tricky. He leaned on his cane, his posture relaxed, but his tone edged with something colder. Maybe you should call them. I will. Good. I'm curious what they'll say. For a moment, their silence filled the closet like fog. He smiled faintly. You smell like Derek's cologne. Her breath caught. Excuse me? Or maybe it's the same brand. I can't tell. Some scents mix easily when people spend too much time together. Before she could answer, his phone buzzed on the nightstand. He reached for it, his movement deliberate. That'll be my lawyer. We have a lot to discuss today. Her jaw tightened. Your lawyer? He turned his head toward her. Yes, Marissa. Mine. He left the room before she could speak. Downstairs, Nathan joined Claire Donovan in the study. The curtains were drawn, the air precise with purpose. Claire placed a folder on the desk. The court granted the temporary freeze on all joint accounts. The judge found probable cause based on the evidence package. Your wife can't move a cent without alerting the receivership. Nathan's mouth curved faintly. Perfect. Claire continued. Next, we'll file the injunction for fraudulent misrepresentation. Once the judge reviews the bank footage and audio, the transfer itself will be declared void. The inheritance reverts to you entirely. And Derek? Claire's tone sharpened. He's in deeper trouble. We traced $300,000 wired to an offshore account under his shell company. We'll include that in the embezzlement report. Nathan nodded, calm, focused. Good. But I want this to look like coincidence for now. I want them to think the universe is punishing them, not me. Claire smirked. That's a poetic kind of revenge. Revenge works best when it looks like karma, Nathan replied. Meanwhile, across town, Derek was losing control. He sat in his office staring at a frozen computer screen. His broker couldn't access his accounts. His emails were full of flagged warnings. What do you mean? Assets seized, he barked into the phone. Federal freeze, sir, the voice on the line stammered. Apparently, you're under financial review connected to Parker Holdings. Derek's eyes went wide. Parker Holdings? That company's clean. Apparently not anymore. He slammed the phone down, sweat tracing down his temple. Within seconds, his phone buzzed. Marissa calling. He answered sharply. Did you move anything? No, everything's frozen. I don't understand, Derek. Something's wrong. Someone tipped off the court. Who would... She stopped. Her breath hitched. Nathan. Impossible, Derek snapped. He's blind, Marissa. He doesn't even... Don't call him blind like he's helpless, she hissed. You didn't see his face this morning. He knew something. For the first time, Derek went quiet. Back at the mansion, Nathan sat at the grand piano again, fingers brushing the keys softly. The melody was slow, methodical, every note precise. Revenge turned into music. Sam entered quietly. Sir, Miss Donovan said everything went through. Nathan nodded. Thank you, Sam. Tell her to prepare the second motion, the custody petition. Sam hesitated. Custody, sir? Of course. She made me a fool in public. I'll make her watch me take back my family in court. He paused, smiling faintly. And make her lover watch her fall apart while I do it. Later that night, Marissa sat in the darkened living room, her phone lighting her face with panic. Her mother's voice trembled on the other end. Marissa, I just saw the news. They're saying Parker Holdings filed a fraud report. Are you involved? Mom, stop. It's under control. Under control? Baby, they're freezing accounts. Reporters are calling. Marissa hung up and buried her face in her hands. Upstairs, Nathan stood at the railing, listening to every muffled sob with a still face. He whispered to himself, That's one. The next morning, Claire's text arrived. Stage 2 approved. Public filings will go live in the morning. Nathan's reply came seconds later. Make sure she finds out the same way the rest of Dallas does. He set the phone down and exhaled. The war had only just begun, and tomorrow her name would headline every business paper in Texas. Morning came too bright for comfort. Sunlight sliced through the blinds and painted lines across the bed where Marissa slept alone. Nathan was already gone. The first thing she reached for was her phone, habit driving the motion before fear could warn her. Dozens of notifications blinked across the screen. Emails, texts, missed calls. Her phone buzzed like a living thing. She frowned, opened one message from a friend. Marissa, what's going on? You're all over the news. Her chest tightened. She clicked the link. Dallas Herald exclusive. Fraud allegations hit Parker Family Trust. Court freezes $500 million inheritance amid claims of forgery and coercion. Her own photo stared back at her. A perfect high-resolution image of her leaving the bank beside Nathan. The caption below, Sources allege wife pressured blind husband into signing control documents. The phone slipped from her hand, hitting the marble floor with a crack that sounded like judgment. Downstairs, the sound of piano drifted through the house again. Slow, deliberate, almost mournful. Nathan sat at the grand piano, calm as glass. The morning paper rested beside him, the headline visible. Marissa stormed down the stairs, her face pale, voice shaking. You did this, didn't you? He turned toward her, the sunlight glinting off his dark lenses. Do what? The news, Nathan. Everyone's talking about me like I'm... He smiled faintly. Like you're what you are? She froze, the words hitting harder than a shout. I told you you should have read the fine print, he said quietly. The same way the world's reading about you now. She stepped closer, her hands trembling. You ruined me. He tilted his head. Did I? Or did you just finally meet the mirror you've been avoiding? Her breath came fast. You won't get away with this. Nathan stood slowly, the cane tapping once against the floor. Marissa, I'm blind, not powerless. You built your world on lies. I just turned on the lights. She backed away, speechless. At that exact moment, Derek Lawson's name flashed across her phone. She grabbed it like a lifeline. Derek, thank God. We need to fix this. But his voice was ice. Don't call me. They froze my accounts, my company's under audit, and the press is camped outside my building. I'm finished because of you. Because of me? She shouted. You said you handled everything. You promised. I promised based on what you said, that your husband couldn't fight back. Then help me. He laughed bitterly. Help you? I'm trying to keep myself out of prison. The SEC is already sniffing around. You're toxic, Marissa. We're done. Derek, don't you dare hang up. Click. The call ended. The silence afterward was louder than any scream. She turned to find Nathan still standing at the piano, head tilted slightly, listening to the tremor in her breath. You think this makes you a hero? She hissed. No, he said softly. It makes me free. She trembled. You'll regret this. He smiled faintly. You already said that once, the day we got married. She turned and fled up the stairs, but the damage was already done. Her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Breaking news. Parker Holdings initiates internal audit after CEO's wife implicated in fraud. Parker inheritance scandal. Blind husband outsmarts betrayal. Socialite Marissa Parker faces investigation. Every feed, every headline, every whisper carried her name. The empire she built on charm and pretense was collapsing in real time. Meanwhile, Claire Donovan sat across from Nathan in a law firm conference room, reviewing the next set of documents. Public exposure was step 2, she said. Step 3 is your motion for full control of Parker Holdings. With the evidence we've filed, the board will have no choice but to reinstate you as CEO. Do it, Nathan replied. And after that? Claire asked. He smiled faintly. Custody. I want the children protected from her chaos. Claire nodded. You'll get them. That night, the house felt different, quieter, heavier. Marissa wandered through the living room in a silk robe, phone in hand, her mind a storm of panic. Her reflection in the window looked foreign. The perfect Dallas socialite cracked open for the city to see. She turned off the lights, sank to the floor, and whispered to herself, He can't see me. He can't see any of this. But upstairs, Nathan sat awake, his laptop open, the faint voice of a broadcaster echoing from the speaker. New developments tonight in the Parker inheritance case. He smiled. I see more than she'll ever understand. The following morning, as Marissa tried to reach Derek again, her call went straight to voicemail. Then another message arrived, this time from Claire's firm, served electronically. Notice of hearing, petition for custody, Parker Veers Parker. Her vision blurred as she read it. The headline still ran on every TV. Her mother stopped answering, and her lover had vanished. The empire was ash. Nathan's voice floated from the hallway, calm, unshakable. It's a beautiful day for court, isn't it? She looked up from the floor, mascara streaking down her face. You'll never take my children. He smiled softly, leaning on his cane. Watch me. And tomorrow, the courtroom would decide who really saw the truth. The courthouse in downtown Dallas hummed with whispers, camera shutters, and the low murmur of anticipation that always precedes a public reckoning. Reporters lined the marble steps, microphones poised, hungry for the story of the blind man who outsmarted his wife and her lover in a $500 million inheritance war. Nathan stepped out of the SUV in a charcoal suit, his cane tapping the ground with steady rhythm. Claire Donovan walked beside him, eyes hidden behind dark sunglasses, her briefcase clutched like a weapon. Every step Nathan took was slow, deliberate, regal. Cameras flashed. Mr. Parker, do you have any comment on your wife's alleged fraud? He turned his head toward the voice, his smile calm, almost kind. I believe the truth has a way of speaking louder than any comment. Inside, courtroom 7 was packed. Marissa sat at the defense table in a cream blazer, her makeup flawless, but her hands trembling. Derek sat 2 seats behind her, jaw locked, face pale from sleepless nights. The air smelled of perfume, sweat, and fear. Judge Reynolds entered, gavel striking once. Court is in session. Claire rose. Your Honor, we are here to present evidence that my client, Mr. Nathan Parker, was coerced into signing over control of his late father's trust through deception and fraud committed by his wife, Marissa Parker, and her co-conspirator, Derek Lawson. Marissa's lawyer, sleek and defensive, stood quickly. Your Honor, these are exaggerated claims fueled by resentment. There is no proof of coercion. Claire smiled, almost politely. Then let's test that. She signaled to the clerk. The lights dimmed slightly as the first exhibit played on the courtroom monitor, the bank security footage. The image showed Nathan sitting at the desk, Mrs. Elaine Cooper reading aloud, Marissa's hand pressed on his sleeve. Then came the moment, the one clause that made history. The video froze on Marissa's expression, sharp and impatient, her mouth tightening as Elaine read the words, full ownership to Mrs. Marissa Parker. Claire's voice cut through the silence. Note her body language, Your Honor. This isn't trust, it's control. The judge nodded slowly. Continue. Next came the audio recording from the hotel. Marissa's laughter filled the room. He signed it, baby. The cashier read everything, and he still signed. Then Derek's voice followed. Once the rest clears, we'll move the funds offshore, and when it's done, you'll file for divorce, right? Every word echoed through the courtroom like a hammer on glass. Marissa's lawyer jumped up. Objection! Illegally obtained audio. Claire raised a brow. Recorded in a public venue, Your Honor. Legal under Texas Penal Code 16.02. My client's investigator followed all protocol. The judge gestured for her to proceed. Nathan sat motionless through it all, his head slightly bowed, his expression unreadable. Only his fingers, resting on the table, moved in small, deliberate taps, each one in rhythm with the downfall unfolding before him. Then came the final blow. Claire pulled out a sealed envelope. Your Honor, we submit into evidence the DNA test from the Plano clinic. Dated 3 weeks ago, it confirms that the Parker's youngest child, Michael, is not biologically Mr. Parker's. The biological father is identified as Derek Lawson. A gasp tore through the courtroom. Derek's face drained of color. Marissa's hand flew to her mouth. Claire continued calmly. This document was obtained under subpoena from the clinic, with full chain of custody certified by the lab. The judge's gavel struck once. Enough. He turned to Marissa's lawyer. Does your client wish to respond? Marissa stood shakily. Your Honor, it wasn't like that. Derek, he said, Mrs. Parker. The judge interrupted, voice low, heavy. Sit down before you make this worse. Tears slid down her face, streaking the careful layers of foundation that once symbolized control. Derek whispered, We can appeal this. Claire caught it. You can't appeal DNA, Mr. Lawson. You can only live with it. The courtroom erupted again, cameras flashing, murmurs thickening. The judge called for order. After a long pause, he read from his notes. The court finds sufficient evidence of fraud, coercion, and breach of fiduciary trust. All contested assets will revert to Mr. Nathan Parker. Custody of the children is hereby granted solely to Mr. Parker. The court further recommends referral to the district attorney for potential criminal proceedings. The gavel came down. Marissa's knees buckled. The bailiff caught her before she hit the floor. Derek's lawyer quietly gathered his papers and slipped away. There was nothing left to argue. Nathan rose slowly, his face composed, his voice steady. Thank you, Your Honor. As he turned toward the exit, Marissa's voice broke through the silence. Nathan, please. I made a mistake. I loved you once. He stopped at the door, not turning back. No, Marissa, you loved what I had, and now you can keep what you earned. Outside, the cameras were waiting. Reporters shouted questions. Flashes painted the courthouse steps in white light. Nathan paused at the top, face turned toward the noise, and lifted his chin slightly. I was blind, he said quietly, voice firm enough for the microphones to catch. But they forgot. Blind men still know how to see the truth. The crowd went silent. Marissa and Derek emerged moments later to a storm of shouting reporters, their faces captured by every camera in Texas. Claire leaned close to Nathan as they entered the car. That was strike 5, wasn't it? He nodded. 5 down, 2 to go. She smiled. You're relentless. I learned from the best, he said softly. My betrayers. He turned his face toward the courthouse one last time. They thought this was the end. He smiled faintly, the kind that never reached his eyes. Tomorrow they'll learn what ruin really feels like, and that tomorrow would open the door to the final, merciless revenge, the one that couldn't be erased by money or mercy. Rain streaked across the Dallas skyline that night, washing the courthouse dust into the gutters, while the city's lights flickered like nervous witnesses. Inside the penthouse office of Lawson and Comeo, Derek stood at the window, sleeves rolled, tie loosened, panic seeping through the cracks of his confidence. On the desk before him lay a stack of documents, letters from investors, subpoenas from auditors, and one final notice from the SEC. He poured whiskey into a glass with shaking hands. The phone on his desk vibrated again. Unknown number. He hesitated, then answered. Nathan Parker, said the voice, calm, unhurried. Derek froze. How did you get this number? Nathan chuckled softly. You used my companies to launder your affair, Derek. You really thought I couldn't find you? I don't know what you're talking about. I think you do. You opened shell corporations using my firm's legal address. You wired trust money through them. Every document you filed was under Parker Holdings jurisdiction, which means, Nathan paused, the silence sharp as glass. Your crimes are now my property. Derek's breath hitched. You wouldn't dare. Oh, I already have. By morning, the IRS, SEC, and Dallas County will have everything they need. But don't worry, you won't go down alone. You'll take her with you. The line went dead. Derek slammed the phone down and hurled his glass at the wall. Whiskey and shards dripped down the glass window like broken pride. Across town, Nathan sat in his study, Kane resting beside his chair, laptop open. His voice assistant read out loud the latest filings. Lawson & Co. assets frozen pending investigation. CEO placed under federal review. Claire entered quietly, rain glistening on her coat. It's done. The agencies moved faster than expected. Good, Nathan said softly. He took my sight and my peace. I'll take his freedom. Claire studied him for a moment. That's 6. He nodded. Almost done. Meanwhile, Marissa's world had shrunk to the size of her mother's guest room. The mansion was under court receivership. Every card she owned declined. Every friend she'd ever charmed had stopped answering. Even her parents had gone quiet after the tabloids exposed the affair and DNA scandal. Her phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. Meet me. We need to talk. Derek. She hesitated, then drove through the rain to his office. The lobby was dark. Inside, she found him pacing. What now? She snapped. You said you'd fix this. He turned on her, eyes wild. Fix it? It's over. We're finished. He sent everything to the feds. What? Derek grabbed a folder off the desk and threw it toward her. Emails, bank transfers, phone logs, all of it. He had someone watching us for months. He played us. Marissa's face drained of color. No, he couldn't. He could, Derek said bitterly. He's smarter blind than we ever were with sight. Lightning flashed outside, lighting up the room in harsh silver. Derek poured another drink, shaking. We should have killed the story before it got this far. Marissa's voice trembled. You mean before we got caught? He glared at her. You're the one who made this personal. You wanted the mansion, the title, the show. I wanted money. You got greedy. She slapped him, hard. You ruined me. He laughed darkly. You ruined yourself. Neither noticed the silent figure of a man standing in the lobby beyond the glass doors. Thomas Reed, Nathan's investigator, camera in hand, capturing every second of their argument for the record. By morning, the footage hit every major outlet. Affair partners implode. Lawson blames Parker's wife in $500 million scandal. Marissa woke to a wall of shame. TV anchors replayed her voice from the courtroom, her face twisted in desperation. Derek's company stock collapsed in hours, investors suing him for breach of fiduciary duty. His board expelled him, the firm placed under investigation. At noon, a reporter caught Marissa leaving the building. Mrs. Parker, any comments about the new recordings? She covered her face, whispering, no comment, before rushing to her car. Across town, Nathan watched the broadcast quietly. The rain had stopped, the air heavy and clean. He sat near the window, tracing the edges of his wedding ring one last time before slipping it off. Claire's voice broke the silence. Derek's facing indictment. Marissa's PR team resigned. You've dismantled them, Nathan. He smiled faintly. Justice isn't finished until it hurts to remember. Claire nodded. What's the 7th move? He turned his head toward the open window where faint city noise drifted in, the sound of a life still moving. Forgiveness, he said softly. Claire blinked. Forgiveness? For them? No. He smiled, a quiet, dangerous kind of peace. For myself. Revenge isn't complete until I walk away. That evening, as the city lights blinked awake, Nathan sat alone at the piano once more. His fingers hovered over the keys before pressing into a melody that sounded like closure. Slow, mournful, and final. In another part of town, Derek was being led away in handcuffs, reporters shouting his name. Marissa watched it all from the window of a motel room, tears streaking through the last of her makeup, her phone silent, her world gone. Nathan paused mid-note and whispered to himself, 7. Then he closed the piano lid gently, as though bearing the past beneath its weight. Outside, thunder rolled one last time. Not a storm this time, just the sound of peace reclaiming its space. The man they tried to blind had taught the world what justice truly looked like. The rain had finally given way to a clean Dallas morning. Sunlight glided across the courthouse plaza, catching the flagpole and the marble steps where, weeks earlier, the world had watched a blind man reclaim his dignity. Nathan Parker stood at the edge of the steps now, his hand resting lightly on the shoulder of his daughter Ava. She was 12, sharp-eyed and quiet in ways that reminded him of himself. The court clerk had just handed him the final papers. Permanent custody of both children granted, all trust assets restored under his name. Claire Donovan smiled beside him. "It's over, Nathan. The judge signed everything this morning. They're yours." He nodded slowly, exhaling for what felt like the first time in months. "Thank you, Claire. You've done more than lawyering. You helped me see again." She gave a small wry smile. "You never stopped seeing. You just started looking differently." As they walked down the steps, reporters tried calling out, but this time Nathan didn't stop. The cameras caught his hand holding Ava's. Small fingers wrapped around his, as they entered the car waiting at the curb. Across the city, the opposite was happening. Marissa sat in courtroom 3, hands cuffed in front of her, her once perfect hair pulled into a limp bun. The same journalists who'd once adored her were now scribbling notes about her plea hearing. Fraud, conspiracy, perjury. The words rolled off the prosecutor's tongue like nails on glass. Derek Lawson, in a suit wrinkled from jail sleep, sat beside his lawyer, refusing to meet her eyes. He'd already agreed to a plea deal. 15 years, no parole for 10. His statement blamed her. Hers blamed him. The court didn't care. When the judge read the sentence, 8 years in state prison for Marissa Parker, restitution to be paid through forfeited assets, the courtroom was silent. No gasp, no outrage, only the quiet acceptance of people watching the end of something ugly. Her lawyer leaned toward her. "You'll serve less with good behavior." Marissa's voice broke. "Good behavior is what ruined me." Back at the Parker estate, the air felt lighter. Nathan walked through the empty halls, hearing echoes of laughter that no longer hurt. The portraits on the walls had been replaced, the smiling family photos gone, replaced with paintings his daughter chose herself. Ava ran up to him, clutching a sheet of paper. "Dad, my teacher said we have to write about what we admire most." He smiled. "And what did you write?" She grinned shyly. "I said I admire people who see the truth, even when they can't see it all." He froze, swallowing hard, then laughed softly. "That's beautiful, sweetheart." That night, the house glowed warm again. Friends came, people who had once kept their distance during the scandal. Sam, his driver, grilled barbecue in the backyard. Claire stopped by with a bottle of champagne. Laughter filled the space where silence once lived. Later, when everyone had gone and the children were asleep, Nathan sat alone in the garden under the Texas sky. The air was calm. No more reporters, no more lawyers, no more whispered pity. He ran his fingers over the Braille inscription on the trust papers beside him. The same papers that had once nearly stolen everything. The words read, "Parker Family Legacy, Integrity Above All." He smiled. "Guess we're finally living up to it, Dad." His phone buzzed on the table beside him. A message from Claire. "Derek's sentencing next week. Marissa's transfer scheduled. Do you want to attend?" He stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, "No. Let ghosts bury ghosts." He turned off the phone. Across town, Marissa sat in a holding cell, head bowed, whispering a name he'd long since buried. "Nathan." Her bunkmate looked over. "You still praying for him?" She shook her head. "No, I'm praying he never looks back." In his garden, Nathan lifted his face toward the breeze, the faint sound of cicadas blending with the city hum. His life, once wrecked by deceit, now pulsed with a quieter kind of wealth. Peace. He rose, walked toward the piano, visible through the window, and played the melody one last time. The same song that had carried him through darkness now sounded different. Not angry, not broken, just true. And as the final notes faded, the camera panned across the skyline. Derek's company logo stripped from the tower, Marissa's name erased from society columns, and Nathan's new foundation banner unfurled. The Parker Trust for the Blind, building vision beyond sight. The world that tried to break him had become the world he rebuilt, and this time everyone could see who truly owned the light. 5 years later, Dallas looked different. The skyline had grown taller, brighter, glass towers glinting beneath the Texas sun like new beginnings. But for some people, time didn't build, it stripped. At a downtown charity gala hosted by the Parker Trust for the Blind, laughter drifted through chandeliers and champagne bubbles. Cameras flashed as donors mingled, marveling at the foundation's impact. Scholarships, training centers, outreach programs. On stage, Nathan Parker stood tall behind the microphone, his cane resting neatly against the podium. His hair was streaked with gray now, but his voice carried the quiet weight of peace. "People think blindness is about darkness," he said, smiling faintly. "But I've learned it's about learning how to see differently, how to recognize truth when others only notice shine." Applause rippled through the room. Beside the stage, Ava, now 17, watched proudly. Nathan reached for her hand, the same way he always did before stepping down. He didn't see the audience's tears, but he felt their hearts lean closer. After the speech, guests gathered to congratulate him. Journalists called his story the most inspiring redemption arc in Texas philanthropy. He smiled humbly, greeting each person by name. But then, near the back of the ballroom, something shifted. A woman stood by the doorway, thinner, paler, older than the world remembered. The light hit her face at an angle that revealed every regret she carried. The pearls she once flaunted had been replaced by a modest necklace from a halfway home gift shop. Marissa Parker. Security had almost stopped her at the entrance, until she said softly, "Tell him it's his past." Now she stood frozen, watching Nathan shake hands with a senator, his calm presence radiating through the crowd. He hadn't seen her, but something in him stilled, the kind of instinct that had always been sharper than sight. He turned his head slightly, as if sensing a ghost. "Ava," he said gently, "give me a minute." He stepped away from the crowd, cane tapping softly on the marble. The murmurs faded behind him as he approached the woman by the door. The scent hit him first. Faint traces of the same perfume she wore years ago, dulled now by cheap soap and time. "Marissa," he said quietly. She froze, breath catching. "You knew I was here. I felt you." Her eyes filled with tears. "I didn't come to cause trouble. I just needed to see what I destroyed." He tilted his head slightly. "Then you're looking in the wrong direction. You didn't destroy me. Marissa, you built the man standing here." Her lip trembled. "I paid for what I did." He nodded. "Yes, but debt and redemption aren't the same thing." "I don't want forgiveness," she said quickly. "I wouldn't believe it if you gave it." He smiled faintly. "Then you came here for something else." She hesitated, then whispered, "Our daughter. Does she ever ask about me?" "She remembers," he said softly. "But memory doesn't always mean longing." A tear slipped down her cheek. "I don't blame her. I wouldn't want to remember me either." Nathan's voice lowered. "Marissa, you made choices that burned everything in reach, but I learned something in that fire. Sometimes the people who betray us are just mirrors showing us what we refuse to see about ourselves." She swallowed hard. "And what did you see?" He smiled gently. "That kindness can be a weapon or a shield. You taught me to use it as both." Her voice cracked. "Do you hate me?" He shook his head. "Hate is a chain. I stopped wearing those years ago." She nodded, tears spilling freely now. "I just wanted to say thank you for not turning Ava against me." "She'll find her own truth," he said. "But she knows one thing for certain. Her father can see better than most men with perfect vision." A silence stretched between them, soft but final. Then Marissa whispered, "You really did win, didn't you?" Nathan turned slightly toward the sound of the music returning behind them. The laughter, the light, the life rebuilt from ruin. "No," he said, "I didn't win. I just stopped losing." He took a step forward, past her. She closed her eyes as he brushed by, the faint scent of cedar and calm trailing him. When she opened them again, he was already back among the people, surrounded by light, applause, and purpose. Marissa watched him for one last time, her shoulders trembling under the weight of everything she'd thrown away. Then she turned and walked out into the night, disappearing into a city that no longer knew her name. Nathan returned to the stage to close the evening, his voice warm, steady. Sometimes, he said, God blinds us so we stop looking at what's glittering and start seeing what's real. The crowd rose in applause, and somewhere outside under the streetlights, a woman once called Marissa Parker lifted her face toward the sky, tears mixing with the glow of the city, realizing too late that the man she betrayed hadn't been blind at all. He had simply learned to see beyond her.